Hello. Are you in the right room to get the right business done so that you can set yourself up strategically to give and receive support from respected peers whose opinions you value and that can make an impact on the rest of your business and your life? This is the subject that we're talking about today: how to be in the right room so your business can grow organically and easily without a lot of cringeworthy activities that make you want to run in the opposite direction. My name is Nancy Juetten. I am known as the Get Known, Get Paid Mentor, and I have a particular expertise as a podcast guesting success expert. And I am super excited to be here with my very dear friend and most respected colleague, Christopher Flett. And I just have to tell you a little bit about him before he speaks up. He is the founder of Ghost CEO, and Ghost CEO has just shy of 1,000 business coaches across the better part of North America, and every one of them grew a $1 million business before coming to work for Chris Flett and his Ghost CEO organization. And I always like to quip that Chris makes so much money that his greatest occupational hazard is getting paper cuts every month with the checks that come to him from all around the world. Chris Flett, so good to have you with us today.
Nancy, thanks for having me. Always a fun introduction, and fingers are healed, but I'm taking precautions these days.
Well, we've known each other for 10 years or more. You've been the business coach for my husband for the last, 7 or 8 years. Helped him sell his company for a very handy dandy price. And I think the last time we did an interview, it was the best viewed interview ever on my YouTube channel with 2,200 or more views. So that should let people who are watching in any shape, way, or form know that you've got some magic to add, and maybe I do too.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I remember I was actually, I think, in the United Kingdom when we did that with you and your group, and that was a lot of fun. Speaking of groups, you had a great
holding
group
fingers up at the Med, like you were saying, how many fingers? How many fingers? Remember
that? I do, yeah.
So I like to joke that Chris is the iron boot of accountability, which is the match for my velvet boot of accountability. We both have very different ways of approaching how we serve our clients, but they each have their place. And so during today's juicy conversation, we're going to cover a number of key points that will give you all powerful food for thought. Like, for example, are you an empire builder with a team intending to add multiple commas to your income? Or are you a boutique business owner who goes deep with fewer clients? Or are you somewhere in between? And why does that matter? We're going to talk about that. Are you in the right room, and how do you know? If you've been going it alone for way too long, doing things differently can be a game changer, and we're going to tell you why. What are your standards and boundaries around who you hang out with? Let's name and claim some helpful ways to make sure you're in the right room. And there's some other things we're going to talk about too, but I just wanted to entice you with what's to come so we could just dig in and get to the meat of the matter. So, Chris, why do you think it's important for people to be clear about whether they're building an empire or a boutique or something in between?
Well, I think your approach is going to be much different. And, I think really when I think of all the business owners that I met over the last 25 years, they're really split in those two camps. There's people that want to, build, like just build to build, just want to get bigger and stronger and have more influence and, really try to become a juggernaut in their particular industry. And then I would say almost 50-60% are on the other side that are like, I want to build a business that supports the life that I want to have for myself and my family and my friends, and maybe care for parents and children, and much more of a nurturing kind of a piece, not necessarily driven by, having all those extra zeros, but doing meaningful work as well. And, stuff that you kind of pop out of bed in the morning and can't wait to do. Now, I think you can probably have both, but I think I tend to lean to the first group more than the latter. Is I think, bigger is better, and often have to be reminded about, all of the other important stuff that comes along with success and the responsibility of it.
Well, and I tend to focus more on the latter because, as we both know, I had a little health incident last year, and I realized that I don't get an unlimited number of days ahead, and I want to make sure that the days that I have are spent doing the things I love to do with the people I love to do them, and I most importantly want to have white space on my calendar. And so by designing a business that's aligned with what I care about and what matters most to me, my intention is that I get to hang out with people who have a similar value. So those who are looking to have multiple zeros in their income need to hang out with people and be in the room with people who are aspiring to that. Because in my experience, when I'm in a room with people that are in that bucket, I tend to go a little bit small and maybe not participate fully because I'm intimidated by the success that is around me that is maybe 10 steps beyond what I could possibly ever achieve given my current view. Do you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, it's funny, you and I being kind of the yin and yang and having such a great friendship is I'm the exact opposite. And so when I'm in a group of people that are kind of empire building, I often feel small insofar as I need to game up to become the biggest personality in this room. And so I have kind of the opposite thing where kind of my chest puffs, internally anyway. And then I'm like, I need to up my game in order to be deserving of being in this room. And when I'm with a room that might be, more boutique business owners, I often have to hold myself back, almost shrink myself, almost the inverse of what you said, shrink myself because I want to get out the jockey crop and whack everyone in the butt going, come on, everyone, we can do 2 times. Like we can get this rocking and rolling. And to tend to be a very overwhelming personality in those rooms. So I think you and I have the exact inverse internal dynamic when we're in our different rooms.
But being in the right room is so important because when you're in the right room and there's safety in the room and people feel that they're with others who are on a similar path, folks can identify more with the problems that are being discussed and feel safe sharing what their unique challenges are. Whereas if you were in a really mixed room where everybody's an empire builder and you're in the minority, you may just, you will certainly be inspired and excited about what people are accomplishing and how they are accomplishing it. But I think the thing that people have to keep in mind is that really the model for you, given what it is that you've got as a primary objective in your life? And so in your experience coaching people over so many decades, do you find that sometimes people chase the wrong model? And does that ever happen?
You know what it does, and it's funny as you explain that because I think back to when I started learning how to coach in 1999. I learned from a gentleman in Australia. His name was Ernesto Ciroli, and his claim to fame was when Australia was going through their recession, he was able to come up with ideas on how service businesses could build themselves without any money or access to money. And the first thing that he said to me is, "Do you call your clients?" And I'm like, "Of course I call my clients." He's like, "Never call a client. Always call them back." I'm like, what does that mean? And he goes, empower your clients to call you when they need you. As a coach, your job is not to check in with them. And so that was when he had said that, it kind of made me angry. And I was in a room with a bunch of coaches, right? Or people, we didn't even know what coaching was back then. It was like AA for consultants. He was trying to teach us to share the secrets, right? That we'd always kept tight. Because if a client gets a secret, then of course they don't need to pay you anymore. As a business advisor, you want your client to have all the secrets so that they can go on without you because they have the tools. And so he had me reeling with this whole thing because I was in the mindset, you call clients every day. And I was looking around the room, hoping that everyone else would be offended, right? Are you offended like I am? Who's this guy talking crap about how we do things? And they weren't, right? But we had like an HR coach and we had a leadership coach, right? And I was obviously the sales coach. And so all these people were eating it up. And then the second thing he said, which I almost didn't hear because I was still razzled from the first comment, was he said, the death of the entrepreneur is solitude. And I think it was probably about a year in business at that point. And I had started my company in Kamloops, which is a small mountain city in the interior of British Columbia, best known for a paper and pulp mill. And I had been going every Monday to Chapters, which Chapters in Canada is like Barnes and Noble or Borders in the US. And there was a Starbucks there. And so Kamloops got a Starbucks. And geez, you'd think that the Queen of England came to visit, right? It was so exciting. And so we would all meet at 10 o'clock on Mondays, reveling in how awesome we were because we weren't going to a job, right? You didn't have to go to a job at nine in the morning. And we would sit in these big, remember how Starbucks used to have the big comfy chairs that enticed you to sit there all day? And so we'd all be sitting there kind of in a circle and, we'd be moaning about how dumb the market is, right? Market doesn't get us, right? They're not going to pay us the money we deserve in Kamloops. We're going to have to go to Vancouver. And when Ernesto said the death of the entrepreneur is solitude, I always felt like I had a network of people around me because I've been good at building, great connections. But Nancy, I didn't have the right people. I had a bunch of people that were complaining and making excuses, and not people that were saying, okay, we need to kind of break through this and all of that. So now if we fast forward 24 years, right, having done this, we have clients, and I would say maybe 60-70% of our clients are more of that boutique style type of a business, right? They might want to break 6 or 7 figures, but it's really about balance and lifestyle and all of that. And then, a minority would be the ones that are looking to license big businesses and so on. It is rare for clients to come and not feel lonely. And that's a really funny thing for me to talk about because we don't do personal coaching, right? So I always say, like, I don't really care about your feelings. I care about the business. Is the business making money and are we growing it? But time and time again, the loneliness would show up. And when Ernesto said the death of the entrepreneur is solitude, what he was really saying is a lot of business owners end up giving up. They stop their business early. They might sabotage their own growth. They might just shut things down and go and get a job because at least they have colleagues. And I still romance about, I worked in nightclubs and I worked in bars and I worked in restaurants, the camaraderie that happens where you're having a bad day and a coworker helps you out. They give you a laugh. They give you some ideas on how to do things better and all that. Most business owners don't have that, or they have, excuse the French, but like a really shitty group of people. And those shitty group of people tend to promote the bad things become worse with the wrong group. When you're with a good group and you feel, and again, I'm just talking from personal experience, but when you have a group of people that you feel comfortable with, that you respect, that have differing viewpoints, that can start to bump you out of your own funks that you might get into. They give you a different kind of an idea how to do things, different service levels. Like for me, the different groups that I have now become part of, I would say, jettisoned me 10 years farther ahead than I should have been had I not have those people. And sometimes it's just a really good idea that they drop on you, but other times they're like, when you do this, that's probably creating a problem. And my first thing is, it's not, right? There's no problems. I'm doing it perfectly, of course. But then you have a look at it because I know, like, and trust the people I'm in groups with, and I'm like, they're actually probably right. And it's sometimes just having that little, some people call it a mastermind or a trusted group. We call it a hunting pack because, of course, it's all in our model within sales. Having somebody that like, and trust that gives you a little bit of feedback, you don't get that from your spouse. You don't get it from your mom. You don't get it from your kids. You don't get it from your best friend. Getting it from another business professional is where magic really happens. And 99% of the time, people don't have it when I ask them.
I want to respond to a couple things that you said there. One is when you're bemoaning what's happening in Kamloops with all the folks that are saying, gosh, ain't it awful? Isn't it true that you also get your own gosh, ain't it awful membership card? And so I think that it's really important, if you are considering joining a group, that you should consider who else is going to be there and be super strategic about it and make sure those people are thinking forward and optimistically so that you can be in that kind of company. The other thing I wanted to say is that with a hunting pack, we were talking about this the other day. The neat thing about a hunting pack is that you're all serving a similar niche audience, but you serve in different ways. And so in that way, you can cross-refer business among and between each other. You can do business among and between each other, and you can create strategic alliances among and between each other and touch the audiences that you collectively serve with messages that would be really refreshing to the people that are a part of it. Another thing I wanted to respond to is this whole idea of ideas. Sometimes you can't see the label when you're in the jar. I think you said that once before. You can't see the label when you're in the jar. And sometimes we're so busy doing our own thing, trying to serve the clients and keep the wheels turning and the plate spinning, that we don't have enough grace or time to say, gosh, if I could just package this differently, I could make 10 times more money. And I was having a conversation with someone today, and she said, I'm so busy taking care of this or that or the other, I don't have time to figure this out. And I said, well, based on what you just told me, what if you did A, B, and C instead? what then might happen in terms of revenue growth and ease and white space on your calendar. And I could just see her eyes go wide and her jaw drop, because it was an opportunity she couldn't see for herself until someone who was paying attention to her business was thoughtful and generous enough to share. Which brings me to a fun little story I want you to tell, because you have been a dyed-in-the-wool for many years. I'm going to do my programs live and I'm not going to have a course. And you were in a hunting pack with a number of respected colleagues, and someone made a suggestion. And I'd love for you to tell us what happened as a result of that suggestion that has created something very exciting in your business that brings more paper cuts.
Yeah, right. Well, and so the when you say distinguished friends, I wish they could hear this, and maybe they'll watch this because they'll know that is a mischaracterization of who they are. So I have a group. One of my groups is about 12 guys. We call ourselves the Red Solo Cup Society. And when you think of red solo cups, right? None of us are drinking in fancy whiskey glass or goblets. It's like the plastic cup. And we use these when we go away. And we go away a couple times a year. Normally we go to Vegas for a cigar show, and then we normally do somewhere like Montreal or so on. And we have, investment advisors, and we have commercial bankers and investment bankers, and, a whole variety, commercial realtors and developers and so on. But what the common thing is all self-made people, all kind of in the same age bracket, and all that don't take each other or themselves too seriously, right? So we're not buying our own PR. We're self-deprecating. We know where we came from. I often joke that, I'm certainly not smarter than anyone. I just tend to outwork everybody. I can work you to exhaustion to win the race. And so one of our friends who's in this group, normally think business financial, that's the unit, is a gold mine architect. And so when you're building a gold mine, he's the person that decides, how it gets built and how it gets dug and all this stuff. And so we call him Lego. We all have nicknames, and we call him Lego because he's got a really square head. And so he looks like a Lego figurine. And so we're all sitting in the hot tub smoking cigars. And the great thing about this group is we all kind of do some type of business together. Some of us buy from each other. Some of us partner on things, all of that. We're really honest with each other when there's something, that's challenging us. And we can't do that in our normal life. That's the benefit of kind of a closed group that's being curated. And I'm proud to say, I'm totally happy to brag, I put this group together because every person that I brought in, I wanted to make sure would bring value to everyone else, not one or two people, everyone. And so having a curated group, also very difficult to do. I selfishly did it because I wanted people that I could hang around with, that I could offer value to, but maybe more importantly, because I'm selfish, I could get value from. And so in my day-to-day work, my job is not to tell clients when I'm having challenges. Now, I might admit, here's a challenge that I overcame and here's how I did it. It's a kind of a learning structure. But if I'm staying up at night because something's bothering me or whatever, I'm certainly not wasting a client's time on sharing that with them. This group is a group where I could say, this is something that I'm struggling with, and I put it out there. And, when we go to Vegas, everyone's like, oh, you must be ripping it up on Vegas. No, we go to bed at like 10 o'clock at night. And we normally are sitting in the hot tub all day, smoking cigars, drinking whiskey with a pad of paper, all making notes. Because when two guys might be talking about a problem, I'm listening to their problem, thinking how I might be able to give some valuable input, but also thinking about how what I'm hearing can benefit me. So I'm participating in the group, but also thinking, what lessons can I learn from what I'm hearing that I can also use? And so I was talking that, in most audiences, or, even in a group like this, if there's 100 people in an audience, and Nancy, I've shared this with you, right? And I actually think we met through a common client where it was kind of a smaller group, wasn't it? But if there's 100 people that come to a talk, 5% or 5 people will be an ideal client for our one-on-one coaching, and 95 aren't. And that might be that they're too small. Their focus might be on something different, mindset. We're too much for them. I mean, there's a million reasons why. And so for 17 years, those 95 people or 95% go with God. Here's a book, all the best. Let us know how it goes. And that was all we offered. And I say that with a laugh because I'm so embarrassed, because I would give clients shit if they left meat on the bone like that. And so this had been something that had been bothering me for years, because people would be like, well, do you have anything for us other than this? I'm like, I don't. All we have is the one-on-one coaching. So I'm talking about this in the hot tub with the guys, and I'm like, I got to figure this out at some point. And Lego, who's walking by, said, well, you should just boost some of your stuff online. And I'm like, shut up, Lego. You don't know what you're talking about. And so he walks by, right? And then he walks by again, almost like a a cuckoo bird on a clock, then goes this way, then goes this way. And he's like, well, why don't you record some of it and put it on and make it at a more affordable price? I'm like, shut up, Lego. Like, we're talking about training here. You're a gold. If I want to find gold, I'll ask you, right? But he won't let it go, because part of our group is everybody has to leave stronger. And so parenting is not the right word, but we take responsibility that everyone gets their crap sorted before they go home. And so the third time he goes, what are you scared of for online training? I'm like, it doesn't work. The people who come into one-on-one, it's not going to work for online. And he's like, those are not the people you're putting online. You're offering it to the 95 people that you're abandoning after your sessions. And the abandoning thing really got my goat. And he goes, do it for them. Even if they're not the ones coming in, give them something else that they can use. So it makes me mad. I get up, I get my pad of paper, I start writing down. I think, okay, how would I convert GoCO to a program that people could learn over 6 months that we would never talk to? And we just give them some value. And I always start with price. What's the price? And then, can I justify the price that I want to charge? Well, long story short, that program is now called the Foundry. And it's a 6-month online program where people can learn the tools of the GoCO, no matter how big or small you are. And that's become 40% of our global revenue. And so that's it, 4 years. Now, it took me 17 years of ignoring. And then we have this donkey gold miner who walks by and makes a couple of things, changes my mind. And then when I look at it, I'm like, that's actually a great idea. And it's now put into play in some of our biggest clients like Deloitte and American Airlines and the Cordon Bleu all use this program for their senior managers and their, campus directors and so on. And so that, now I hope he doesn't see this, because I certainly owe him to never pay for a drink again or lunch, but I'm going to stick him with the odd bill. That's the power of having an interesting group of people that are driven to excellence, but in their own way. And they can't help but want to help others, knowing that when one of us is strong, all of us are strong. And so that, I think, is the story that most kind of resonates with me. And that is the life-changing impact the right group can have if it's curated properly. Most groups aren't curated. If you get one bad apple or two bad apples in it, it becomes garbage. So if you can find someone to curate a good group for you to be a part of, it's beautiful, right? And like I said, it erased 17 years of sins for me. And we're now, and I try not to think about had I got that information, 14 years ago, but that's the power of having a diverse group that are driven to doing things the right way, that will give you feedback on what you're doing. And most of us don't have that.
And I think it's an itch that a lot of us would like to have scratched. I want to tell another story. I was, as I've mentioned, I'm the podcast guesting success expert. And about 3 years ago, I was really digging in to learn every nuance about how to be brilliant at this as I possibly could, because that's the kind of gal I am. I'm really into mastery. So I find myself in a small curated group of people who are very serious about podcast guesting and establishing expert authority. And I was right in the middle of putting the finishing touches on the Bye Bye Boring Bio workbook that I brought to market in 2020 to serve speakers, experts, and authors who needed to speak up virtually because they were sheltering in place. And so I'm excited about the book. I've got this like tunnel vision, book. I got to do the book. And this gentleman is in the group and he says to me, have you thought about doing a preview for the book? And I said, why would I want to do a preview for the book? And he said, because you can get the preview out and build a lot of buzz for your book ahead of time. You can build a huge audience for your book before the book is even in your hand. And you might even become an Amazon best-selling author with a preview. And I said, I didn't even know that was a thing. He says, it's a thing. And so I thought about it and I thought, you know what? That's a good idea, because it wasn't going to be till September that I was going to have the book in my hand, but it was July, and why not get on with it? So I took I created a preview of the book. I brought it out to market. It became an Amazon bestseller in 4 categories, and I would have never done it if not having been in that curative group of people who had similar interests, who had brighter ideas than what was brewing in my head at that moment. And that ended up being a brilliant thing, because the book came out in September. You endorsed it to your entire Ghost CEO organization. And all of a sudden, that video that you did about why that book was so awesome has been viewed like, I don't know, 1,800 times. Like, oh my gosh. It's so I am in the position right now where I am curating a group that can be like what it is that we're describing. And I'm being very, very particular about it, because I think that in terms of training others to curate their own groups, if you put yourself in the center of a tic-tac-toe board and you imagine that there are 8 spaces around you where you can look up or look down, just like Hollywood Squares, and say, who can I call to ask for this or that? If you curate exactly who you want in the group that serves the same audience, but in a completely different way, that Hollywood Squares becomes the inner circle of awesomeness, that you instantly have people that you can refer to that will refer back to you. And when these people have audiences already curated of their own, of 1,000 or more opt-in subscribers, if we have 12 people in the group, that's 12,000 people that we can all introduce each other to as a warm introduction, because we know these people, we trust these people, we do business with these people, and we know enough about why they're swell that we can absolutely extend our trust to our communities so that they will want to trust them too. Right?
Yeah, I think that's true 100%. And I think that's, I mean, you putting your group together or a group together, I think is key. Is a lot of times people will put a group together of people that they want. And that's what we have our clients do, right? It's called a hunting pack. But the challenge with that is that's a selfish function. You're looking for people that will help you. You taking it to the next level, and what you're talking about is tic-tac-toe, is you're bringing in 2 people. They need to serve me. I need to serve them. They need to serve each other. And every new one that comes in becomes a multiplier. And so, not to be a math nerd, but like 1 + 1 isn't 2, it's 3. Right. And then 3 is like 9, and like 9, 3, 4. Like as you add more and more people to a group, the exponential power of that group becomes, almost unimaginable. But the catch is every individual in the group has to benefit and be of value to every other person. And I think that's why what you're doing is actually quite exciting, is as you select each person in, you're like, do you fit with all? And then the next person, do you fit with all? Not half of them. When everyone fits with everybody, I mean, it's not to nerd out, but it becomes magic. And in our small version of that, a hunting pack, it's 4 to 8 people. The average hunting pack generates 96 qualified prospects a year for every member. And this is not curated to the level you're talking about. This is one person finding selfishly people that benefit them. And so I can imagine what's going to happen when you put together these groups.
Well, I've run this group for the last half a year, and it's been so satisfying to see people doing business with each other, cross-referring, looking out for each other, and also brainstorming on how to take their business to the next level. And I think one of the things that's special and different and preferred about the group that I am leading as compared to the groups that you may lead is that we're really paying attention to who people are personally. And as I mentioned earlier, I had a little health issue last year. It seems like no matter where we are, there's some kind of life that's hitting the fan. And one of my members fell down a flight of stairs and broke her wrist, and she was the #1 breadwinner in her family. And she was in a lot of pain, and she was not able to work to the level that she needed to in order to sustain her family's households and also keep the money running in. And we all joined together in a GoFundMe campaign and raised $18,000 so that she could have some space to heal. And another person was, I mean, everybody's got something. I mean, everybody's got something. But what's really special and different about this group is that we want you to love your business, and we also want to love your life, but you also want to know about who you are as a human being and be able to be in your corner and by your side, which brings me to another story I want to tell here, which is anyone who's ever gone through cancer treatment knows that it can be pretty fatiguing at times. And if we have responsibility to show up live on a Wednesday at 9 o'clock to deliver value to our clients who are expecting nothing less than the best, we have a responsibility to do exactly what we need to do. And I will never forget the kindness that you paid to me, because you and my husband have a relationship, and you would ask Steve, how's Nancy doing? And he says she's okay, but she's awfully tired. And you reached out and said, how can I help? And I remember thinking to myself, I'm exhausted. Would you consider helping me teach the next class so that we could really have some fun with it and people could have a whole new experience about what it is to grow a business that's really rocking and rolling? And you were only too happy and too gracious to do it. And it turned out to be the most viewed video on my YouTube channel all year long, because it was so good. I decided to share it out with everyone I knew. And I think some of the people in your world heard it too, because I don't think I know that many people. But
Yeah,
that was
no,
such
yeah,
a
that was
kind
great.
thing. That's such a kind thing that you did. And so in my group, when life hits the fan, we're going to be able to say, should I come and teach a bonus call for your people while you recover? What can I do to extend myself to serve you in an unexpected and profound way when you need that help? Because we want to be in your corner and by your side, not just for your business, but for your life. And life does hit the fan, as we know. So,
Well, you know what I love about that is you tell that story, because so I love that meant so much to you. And to me, that was such a small thing to be able to offer with what we had going on. And, I was talking to a friend recently, and so in Canada, we have a group called Hutterites. And so it would be the closest equivalent would be in America would be Amish. And so have you ever watched an Amish barn raising? You ever
yes.
seen anything on that? Right. Okay. And so this is what I was talking about is I like old school business, right? Where you do business with people your entire life, right? If it's working, you stick with it. And so I had a client who was putting up a barnuminium. And so it's like oh Jesus, I don't know, like I'm going to say 20,000 square foot garage with a bunkie up top. You know what I mean? Like that has bedrooms and stuff like that. And so you keep your toys in the bottom, right? Like your motorhomes and your boats and all that stuff. And up top you have sleeping quarters. And so it took her about 2 years to build this thing, because contractors come and then the plumber comes and then the framer comes, and it's 2 years. And I thought to myself, I would never do that. Well, a friend of my brother's is a Hutterite, which would imagine Canadian Amish. And so I was saying to him, I'm like, oh geez, I showed him pictures on my phone. I'm like, look at this. And he's like, that's 3 days of work. And I'm like, 3 days of work? I'm like, that's not 3 days of work. And he's like, that would take 3 days for the Hutterites to build. And I'm like, listen, unless you're Speedy Gonzalez or you have a ton of equipment, he's like, in the Amish world, when they're raising a barn, everyone comes to raise the barn. And so raising a barn might be, I'm talking about here, 1,000 man hours of labor. But if you have 100 people show up, it's just a day's work. And I think that's the piece that you're kind of talking about, Nancy, is like, I didn't say to you, hey, can I come clean your house? Because I'm not going to do a good job of that, right? But these certain areas that I know when you needed help and when you said, hey, would you think about, yeah, that's a no-brainer. That was such a small thing. I felt bad I wasn't doing more for you. And I love that you felt like that was a big thing. And I think that's the power of being in your right tribe, being in the right group, is getting assistance in whatever. I mean, Lego, walking by to get the cigar, walking by to get the cutter, walking by to look for a lighter. He gave me an enormous gift, and it's not like he was breaking sweat doing it. And that's the magic of getting a great group. Like it sounds like the one you're putting together and the ones that you've had. It just makes everything, it just takes away a lot of the turbulence that we all face as business owners.
It absolutely does. And I think what was really heartening for me for the last 6 months is twice a month, like clockwork, everyone showing up to be part of the community, to give as well as they receive. We became like a lifeline for each other. How's that going? How did that work out? What can I do to support you? And going back to these, how many people does it take to raise a barn? So many people in the online world are wanting to grow their list and touch and transform more lives and do it in a highly leveraged way, and finding the right people to link arms with can be a time-consuming effort that some people don't put the time into. But I am putting the time into curating these amazing people so that you don't just have your own community, you have 12,000 people that can beat the drum for you, because we're going to all support each other. So I know that when I'm in the right room, there isn't anything I can't do. And if I'm in the right room, if I need some help, there isn't anybody there that won't step up. And I think that these are itches that need to be scratched, especially in a shelter-in-place world where a lot of people have taken isolation to a whole new level. So I'm very, very excited about what it is that I'm building here. And I am so glad that we're talking about it. What do you see as any disadvantages of being in a group like this?
Well, okay, so I mean, there's not many. So if I was to nitpick and remember that my goggles on the world are really all around sales, is a lot of times people will think I'm in this group so I don't have to do anything else to build my business. And groups like this should be an extension. They should be an injection kind of excitement and ideas. But still, I find that even the groups that I'm in, or the groups that I oversee clients kind of doing, is everyone has to be doing their work. And so you can't just come in and coast. Everyone has to be active in between sessions. You have to keep your word. So if you say you're going to do something, you have to do it. And so, I mean, I think that's probably something that you're really great at, Nancy. I know just the integrity you bring to the table is people can't be in a group and say they're going to do something and then not do it. So they have to be committed to being like an active part of the group. But like really aside from that, if you think, a group is going to absolve you from having to do any day-to-day, responsibilities in your business, it won't. But it's certainly going to make those things 100 times easier. And, that networking part that you talked about having access to each other's networks, it's, when our clients are able to dial that in on a very small scale, the results are exponential. If you're in a curated group with, let's say 8 to 10 to 12 to 20 people, whatever that group needs to look like, I've seen groups of 4 triple everyone's business. And that wasn't a curated group. That was an individual bringing in people that do complementary work to what they do. Something like this, where you have people of equal integrity that are out there, making stuff happen, keeping their word, figuring out how they can be of service and how they can get served. I'm excited to see how it's going to go, because I can just imagine a worst case scenario will be a multiplier in everybody's business. Best case scenario, where everybody, forms and tightens up well, which they probably should, because you're the one picking them coming in the group. I mean, it's going to be really unstoppable. It's something pretty magical.
Well, I'm very, very excited about it. And from what I read, I mean, the people that I work with, like 70% of the people I work with elect to renew for a second session because they get so much value. And the reason that they don't is because their life changed and it was time for something else. But to have such a high renewal rate gives me the great confidence that I'm on the road to something really special here. So I want to talk a little bit specifically about who it is that would be an ideal member of this group. You've already mentioned integrity, people willing to do the work. The ideal contributor is someone who has got an expertise that's complementary to podcast guesting, serving the expert, author, speaker kind of niche. And I'm looking for people who already have a 4-figure or greater offer that's already selling happily to their ideal client. I want them to have at least a 4-figure opt-in list that they've already established, so that we have that asset that we can share among and between each other when it's appropriate. And I want people to be prepared to invest in their success so that they are invested in showing up and getting and giving value. And if that's who you are as you listen to this by replay, and you think that this could be a fit for you, I'd love for you to go to the invitation page that I will gladly drop in the comments, so that you can read what I poured out of a vein from my heart onto the page, exactly everything you need to know about what this is, what this isn't, who it's right for, who it's not right for, and what you can expect in terms of results and support. And if what you feel when you read this is that this is an answer to a prayer, I want you to hop on the phone so we can talk about it, and we'll make sure that it's a fit so you can absolutely commit. And we're going to start in October, and it's likely going to be mid to late October. So that gives you time to think about it, consider it, have a chat with me to make sure it's a fit. And maybe you'll even want to refer some of your colleagues to be part of it as well, because I think that the rising tide will lift all the boats. I've got the Rolodex the size of a wagon wheel. I've got a reputation that is untarnished. That's what they tell me. I'm good people. And so if you can tap into my network and I can tap into yours, just imagine what we can do when we can link arms and accomplish magnificent things together. And I was just talking to a lady this morning who has a very specific offer, and I said, every single person in my world needs what you have. Every single person in my world needs what you have. How many new clients do you have to welcome to get a return on investment? It was like hardly like 2.
Right.
She's going to get to her return on investment with her second client, and everything else that happens is gravy. But why am I asking for an investment to start? Because if you don't put some skin in the game, you don't show up, you're not invested, and it's not going to work. You have to want it enough to show up and make a commitment to the community. And I'm certainly going to go the extra mile for you. And speaking of going the extra mile, I'm a brilliant word wizard. I'm a brilliant joint venture partner. I've more than proven my value writing bios for people over the last 10 years. If there's word wizardry and magic that you need, if you say, will you please review my whatever it is and see if you can make it better? You're not going to get a thumbs up, keep up the good work. You're going to get, are you open to some upgrades? And is it okay for me to make suggestions? And if you say yes, then hold on to your hat, because it's coming at you in a level of specificity and clarity and magic that will exceed your expectations. And I guess that's something else we should talk about. How many times do we create something in a vacuum and we have no idea whether or not it's hot or not? And who are we going to call to look over what we've created to get that discerning viewpoint, which is, I see you've got something going on here, but I think it could be 20% better if you did this also, you know?
Well, that's what we did in our group when we go back to that founder program. Is I had the pricing set and then the value proposition, and I ran it by 10 guys who would all be buyers, and they're like, no, the pricing's wrong and the messaging's wrong. And I'm like, what? And then it needs to sound like this. And as I tweaked it, I'm like, yeah, that's actually good. And so having not just you, Nancy, but having other people they can bounce ideas off of. How many mistakes have we all made where you take something to market and you totally have kind of miscalibrated the messaging, and then you have to quickly back up, hide it, put it under the tarp for a little bit, and then do a relaunch doing it the proper way. I mean, I don't want to admit how many times I've done that in my career.
Oh gosh. Yeah. So I think we're onto something really big here. And I'm so honored that you would make time to talk about the value of a hunting pack, the value of being surrounded by positive, forward-thinking people that are serving a similar niche. And is there anything more you'd like to say as we?
Well, I just think that of all the stuff that you're offering, I mean, it's all valuable, but I think anyone that hasn't tried to form their own group probably isn't aware of how challenging it is to get the right group. And on the other side, having someone take the responsibility of curating the right group for you, I mean, that's the value when I hear it myself, is the amount of time spent on coffees, lunches, dinners, trying to find the right people and then making sure that they like each other and, all of this stuff. Like that is a job on its own. And so I really think that, I mean, I'm a big fan of everything you do, but your price point I'd probably like to see it go up a little bit if it were me. Remember empire building. I'd like to drive that up a little bit, but nobody really understands the value of a well-organized and working group until you're in your first meeting. And then you're like, how the heck have I been doing this on my own for all this long? At least that was my experience.
Well, I want to add something to that, which is, I've been in business since 2001, and many different iterations across time. You can Google my name and you'll find all kinds of hairstyles over 22 years. But I think my proudest moment came in December of 2022 when I came through the health challenge, having kept it a secret from all of my mastermind clients and letting them know, yeah, I was a little fatigued and I want to tell you why. Well, the next day, this crystal award arrived at my front porch. And it's the Star of Excellence Above and Beyond Award presented to Nancy Juetten with appreciation, recognition, and acknowledgement for your exemplary expertise in building a supportive and caring community that rises together. And in air quotes, how you do anything is how you do everything. This arrived on my doorstep the day after I revealed to my mastermind clients that I was just finishing my cancer treatment and that I had given them everything I had and a bag of chips besides, and they knew it. They knew that I had done that, but they didn't know the true circumstances under which I had made it happen. And so I'm bringing that up because I'm at a place in my life where it's not all about the money. It's about being on purpose, serving the right people, contributing to their success, and having my legacy be alive today. And if those clients would say that and do that for me, just imagine what's going to happen when we join forces and link arms in the Love Your Business, Love Your Life inner circle that's starting late October. If it's exciting to you, check out the links that I'm going to share in the chat, and let's make sure that we chat about it. And I would be remiss if I did not say, you've been meeting Chris Flett, Ghost CEO founder. And if you are an empire builder, and you are someone who's looking for multiple commas and licensing and big, huge growth, it could be that Chris Flett and one of his Ghost CEO coaches could be the people that you've been looking for. And if he doesn't ever talk to anybody that doesn't come to him pre-introduced by someone he already knows. So if you think you want to be introduced to Chris Flett, you reach out to me and I'll make sure that you meet him. You can also go to ghostceo.com to see what the fuss is about. Any particular parameters you want to let people know about so they don't waste your valuable time, Mr. Paper?
No, yeah, no, I love it. I love it. And what I would say is, if you're wondering if you need coaching or if you should be part of the group, be part of the group. Because if you have a group like that and you get coaching down the road, all of the tools that we apply will just be like gas on a flame. If you don't have a supportive group around you, it's heavy sledding. And so if you're thinking, geez, I should do one or the other, do the group thing first. That is by far the biggest bang that you can get for your buck in regards to the pricing in particular, which needs to go up a little bit. But it's yeah, it's just, I'm always pleased to be with you, Nancy, because I always think to myself, I need to be a better person.
Well, Rome wasn't built in a day. Rome wasn't built
Right.
in a day. And I guess since you put it to you that way, if this sounds like a screaming deal to you, what I want you to know is that my intention with the 6-month arrangement is that you will have such a great experience and such great results that it's a no-brainer for you to make a mindful choice to renew, not just for the next 6 months, but for multiple 6-month or year-long periods after that. Because
Right.
what I've discovered in my life, I heard this from another expert who I admire tremendously, Steve Sims. He said, if you would not cross 4 lanes of heavy traffic to grab a cup of coffee or a beer or a whiskey with someone you see, then they shouldn't be in your circle and you should be glad of it. But I'm looking for people to be in this inner circle that I would cross 4 lanes of heavy traffic to grab a beer or a glass of wine or to have a meal and to break bread, talk shop, and talk life. And if you're hungry to have that same kind of relationship, we can be jewels in the crown of our lives together and make our businesses soar to new heights and do it in an organic, natural way without a lot of that cringeworthy stuff that gets on our nerves and makes us want to run. So that's my story. I'm sticking to it. Christopher Flett, thank you so much for being on the journey with me and contributing to this juicy conversation. And for those of you who are watching this replay, if you think you should be talking to me, let's make it happen as soon as possible because we're going to start in the middle of October and I want you on the train going downtown very fast. All right. Thanks so much.